Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you had a wonderful Passover. I certainly did. Traveling the beautiful land of Israel, specifically up in the Western Galilee. I had a great time over the course of the holiday. And now we are going back to the real world, back to work, and of course back to hosting shows here on the Land of Israel Network in order to provide you up-to-the-minute information on everything making news here in Israel, to give you insight which you're just not getting from the mainstream media. It is Sunday, April the 8th, 2018, the 23rd of Nisan, 5778, recording for my show on Monday. Of course, you can always get in touch with me, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter, at Josh Hasten. And we are live on this for this segment on Facebook Live. So say hello wherever you are in the world of ours if you're watching on Facebook. And, of course, you can catch the rest of the show when it is available in its entirety sometime on Monday afternoon Israel time. So a lot of stuff to discuss in the news. And, of course, the biggest story, the second week in a row of this, I don't even want to call it a protest, this violent gathering at the Gaza border, yet again this weekend here in Israel. For the second week in a row, it's called the Great March of Return. And you may or may not have seen it in the mainstream media. I don't know what angle you were getting or what information you were getting, but I just want to clarify some of the reality behind what happened over the weekend here. And we'll start by giving you some quotes. If you were mistaken into believing that this was some type of peaceful protest or Israel was unleashing its fury against the residents of Gaza, as perhaps you are made to believe through the mainstream media, I want to start off by telling you in Arabic, what the leader of Hamas said about this march. His name is Yahya, I believe, Sinwar, the leader of Hamas. He said the following in Arabic, remember, not in English, not when the cameras were rolling, not when CNN and the others were rolling. He said, "We will take down the border with Israel, and we will tear the Israelis' hearts out of their bodies." We'll tear their hearts out. So that gives you a little bit of insight as to what this march was really about this past weekend. You have Ofer Gendelman, the spokesperson for Prime Minister Netanyahu, the Arab language spokesperson, also posting throughout the weekend and on Twitter about other things that the Hamas leader was saying. One of those on Friday, and I think this also summarizes what happened. He said, the Hamas leader, "We don't know what is Palestine of 1948 or what are the 1967 borders. For us, Palestine is all of Palestine." In other words, if you believe that the problems in Israel today are because of Judea and Samaria, well, the leader of Hamas is telling you the entire country is what they're after, and that is the purpose. That was the purpose, and that will continue to be the purpose as they host these demonstrations weekly. And another one of the shocking images, of course, the Hamas and Nazi flag, which was on full display for the world to see there at the border. And Ofer Gendelman also tweeted about it. He said, "Hamas terrorists have planted today, right on the Gaza-Israel border, this Nazi flag, which was flying between the Palestinian flags. Hamas proudly declares its aim is to annihilate Israel and the Jewish people." Again, that's the spokesperson there. Wanted to give you a direct quote from him. Front page of the Jerusalem Post today. 9 were killed during the march on Friday. Again, we're talking about terrorists here trying to infiltrate the border. Many of them identified already by Israel, those who were killed, as being wanted Hamas terrorists trying to infiltrate and, of course, then eventually reach Israeli communities and murder Israelis. That's what this march was all about. Reported on the front page of today's paper, the IDF killed 9 Palestinians and wounded hundreds with live fire as soldiers defended Israel's border fence with Gaza from infiltration on Friday in what was the second deadliest day since the so-called Great March of Return, which began last week. And Prime Minister Netanyahu speaking at the Mimuna celebration. Did anybody else go to Mimuna out there in the world? In Gan Yavna, saluted the IDF soldiers. He said, "We're protecting us from those pretending to speak in the name of human rights who wave Nazi flags." And their true intent, he said, is to destroy the Jewish state. That's really what this march is all about. Nevertheless, you have reactions, and I guess it's not surprising, from the international community condemning Israel as a result of this march. And I have direct quotes here from different groups, including the European Union and the UN. I already quoted the Hamas leader. What did the European Union have to say on Saturday? They came out with a statement saying yesterday's fatalities in Gaza raised serious questions about proportionate use of force, wishing speedy recovery to the injured, ... So they're calling out Israel for using disproportionate force and wishing speedy recovery to the injured, some of those, of course, being members of Hamas terrorists. That's where the European Union stands on the issue. The UN, of course, said the following: in light of the tragic events, calling them tragic, of the, quote, Great Return March last Friday, the spokesman said, I reiterate my call on all concerned to refrain from any act that could lead to further violence. Okay, now we saw, and I'll talk about it in a few minutes, over the weekend, Assad, the butcher in Syria, massacred at least 150 people dead in Syria in a chemical gas attack, potentially a barrel bombing dropped on a civilian population. Yet, as of this minute here, and I'm talking about 4 p.m. Israel time on Sunday, I have not seen any condemnation either by the European Union or by the United Nations. At this juncture, I've not seen anything about 150 dead in Syria. Yet all of the activity, or most of the activity on their Twitter feed over the weekend, whether the UN or the European Union, is about the situation in Gaza. 500,000 dead in Syria, chemical weapons being used against their own population. I guess when Israel's not involved, it's not in the news, it's not worthy of condemnation. What did the UN do for, Rwanda or any other mass murders taking place? What did they do with 500,000 dead in Syria before it got to that point? Where were you, European Union, UN, and the rest of the world, who has done nothing to prevent catastrophes in those countries? I guess when it's Muslim on Muslim violence, or if we're talking about Rwanda or Africa, if it's African on African violence, the world is silent. The UN doesn't get involved in those matters. Only when it comes to Israel, Israel's questioned and taken to task, and they want to open up a probe into Israel's self-defense measures. Well, they don't consider them self-defense over what happened the last 2 Fridays. Yet where were you, rest of the world, when all these other atrocities were taking place? And by the way, again, we talked about the Nazi flag, the images of the Nazi flag on the border. Also, if you're paying attention and you're watching on Facebook or listening, wherever you are in the world, we saw the burning of U.S. American flags as well, along with the thousands of tires which were lit on fire. The United States, of course, Nikki Haley stepping up for Israel yet again for the second week in a row. The U.S. on Friday blocked a UN Security Council statement, according to the J Post, calling for an independent probe into the border clashes. So the U.S. gets it. Nikki Haley gets it. The Trump administration understands the situation. Any other country in the world, of course, would defend its borders. And I saw one image of Arabs in a hospital who were all shot in the knees or legs, who were injured, who tried to approach the border fence. So you see what the IDF is doing. You see they're trying to minimize the casualties on the other side. People were killed, a lot of them Hamas members, but you see the intention of the IDF. Unlike any other army in the world, maybe it's not even considered moral, how moral they were being, but yet again, the world pausing to condemn Israel while all these other atrocities were taking place. So that's my take on this great March of Return, and it's not over. Apparently they're going to have another one this Friday, and after that, all the way through Israel's Independence Day. And as I started the show off by saying, they do not recognize 1 inch of the land of Israel as being part of a Jewish state. They won't even say the state of Israel. They call us the Zionists. They will not mention the word Israel. And it's not about Judea and Samaria. It's about the entire country. So that's where we are in this great march. Stay tuned to more on the Land of Israel Network, and of course on reliable news sources if you want information about what's really going on there on the Gaza border. So, again, this is Israel Uncensored. My name is Josh Hasten, and we're recording now on Facebook. I'm going to pause the Facebook, or turn off, rather, the Facebook feed, and I'm going to continue the show, listen to the rest of it, more news, analysis, and hopefully we'll have a great interview for you in just a few minutes on the radio aspect of the show, but we'll turn off the Facebook Live. Everybody out there, Shavua Tov. Hope you had a wonderful Passover. I could do a whole show on how great Passover was here in Israel, how beautiful the things were I saw in the Western Galilee. We could do a whole show just on that. Maybe in the future we'll do a tourism show, and but that's not for today. Anyway, we'll be right back, shutting off the Facebook. So without skipping a beat here on the radio show, an Israeli civilian Sunday afternoon thwarted a stabbing attack at a gas station in the Ma'ale Adumim region, the Mishor Adumim junction, again near Ma'ale Adumim. A Palestinian Arab terrorist arrived at the intersection, tried to stab a civilian, an Israeli, and then he was shot by another Israeli who was at the scene. A quick-thinking, thank God, civilian who had a gun with him shot the terrorist. The terrorist is now listed in serious condition. There was nobody physically wounded in this attack, thank God. 3 Israelis were treated for shock at the scene. Again, today, Sunday, near Ma'ale Adumim. And we see this, unfortunately, way, way too often. As I mentioned earlier in the show, the Syrian leadership, Assad, once again attacking his own people with looks like a chemical gas attack, chemical weapons. Housing and construction minister, Major General Yoav Gallant, Israel's minister, called on the fall of the Assad regime in Syria following this chemical attack in the city of Douma. He said, Assad is the angel of death to hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. There's no doubt the world would be a better place without Assad. That is Minister Yoav Gallant. Reports indicate at least 150 people killed east of Damascus in this village, more than 1,000 civilians affected by inhalation of chemicals, suffering severely. And as I'm speaking to you, I already see President of the U.S., Donald Trump, is reacting to the chemical attack, and others. Will see if the U.S. takes another step perhaps. The U.S., I think it's been already half a year or so ago, bombed some of the Assad regime targets there in Syria. We'll see how the U.S. or others respond to this latest potential, and it looks like it's factual chemical attack against the Syrian people. One other item here before we take a break. There was, back to this great March of Return, so-called, there were reports over the weekend that Israel killed a photographer, and of course everyone rallying, accusing Israel of killing an innocent journalist, covering the story. Well, that may not be the case. According to a blog called the Intelli Times today, supported our defense minister Avigdor Lieberman's hint that this Gaza-based video journalist, the photographer who was killed, Yasser Mortaja, I believe is his name, who was shot and killed by an Israeli sniper on the border, had been operating a camera in a drone over the heads of IDF soldiers. In other words, they believe, and it's not confirmed, but they believe he might have been actually spying on Israeli army activity, and others have documented some of his Facebook posts, one in September of 2017, in which he stated, quote, "Our planes in the sky and our soldiers are on the ground. Our troops are ready for all scenarios." In other words, maybe he is or maybe he isn't directly affiliated with Hamas, but it sounds like that he is a Hamas sympathizer. It sounds like he was using his equipment, his camera equipment in the past in order to spy on Israel. He's not a friend of Israel. He's not an objective journalist who happened to be at the scene. It looks like at this point the IDF had a reason to take out this, if in fact that was the case, if it was an intentional strike, if, mistakes do happen in these situations. But if in fact the IDF took him out intentionally, it looks like he wasn't just an innocent bystander journalist. It looked like he may have been involved in other anti-Israel activity there at the scene on Friday. We're going to take a break here on Israel Uncensored, coming to you this week from Gush Etzion, Israel, south of Jerusalem. Hope you had a wonderful Passover. My name is Josh Hasten. Get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com is my email address. On Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and at Josh Hasten on Twitter. We're going to take a break and be back with much, much more.
It's much more real than any reality show. It's much more dramatic than any drama. It's much more funny than any comedy. It's like a game show, but it's no game. It's our lives.
Listen to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman, political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post, every week on thelandofisrael.com.
We are back. Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, you can always get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. If you missed any part of the show, you can always go back and listen to it on demand on SoundCloud, on iTunes, or of course on the website, thelandofisrael.com. Now, we're going to switch gears here entirely because I thought this was a very, very important thing to do. I probably should have had my next guest on the show a long time ago. His name is Dr. Yoni Yehuda, and he is here in my community of Elazar. You might be able to hear some of the animals chirping, making noises in the background, and that's okay, because that's all part of what Dr. Yehuda does. He runs what is called the Chavayot Center. Now, at first glance, it would appear the Chavayot Center is simply a petting zoo, perhaps, maybe a little bit bigger, animals of all different shapes and sizes, whether the birds you could probably hear chirping, or the cats who are surrounding me, the dogs. There's also horses, a camel, animals from all over the world. I'm looking at a tarantula right now here in its cage. But this isn't just a petting zoo. You can come and visit it and bring your family, and you can make an appointment and book your tickets and come and visit the petting zoo, but this is much, much more. Dr. Yehuda is an expert on animal therapy. He's a leading expert in the state of Israel of on animal therapy, and people from all over the country come and receive treatment from Dr. Yehuda, whether you're talking about children who suffer from different varieties of autism, or other developmental or learning disabilities, or, and I probably want to focus on this a lot, soldiers in this country who suffer from PTSD. And unfortunately, as a result of our reality here in Israel, we have a lot of soldiers who are suffering, who are in need of such therapy as a result of our constant, really, state of war, of terror attacks. So soldiers from all over come to this little community of Elazar. It's actually growing. Now we're up to about 650, 700 families, and they come see Dr. Yehuda for help with whatever they're going through. So without further ado, Dr. Yehuda, welcome to Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
Hello, everyone around the world. First of all, you explained so good, and my poor English, what can I say now? So, Chavayot Center is a rehabilitation center for people and for lost animals. Myself, I was injured at the army at 87. I was one of the first army soldiers that were rehabilitation was with horses and animals. And then I decided to make it as a shlichut for my life.
Your life's mission, in other words.
Mission, in other words. And my PhD is in psychology, and I'm a specialist in animal-assisted psychotherapy. Besides having this wonderful place with more than 1,000 animals and more than 100 different species of animals, I am the head of the School of Animal-Assisted Interventions at the Hebrew University, the Magid Institute, and I'm trying to do whatever I can to help handicapped people, PTSD, as just as before, and other very complicated people that come to me, and I do my best to rehabilitate them, or just give them the therapy that they need. And everything is going on while we are looking after the animals who need their treatment. And as of my research, many years ago, I built a whole idea of protocol of how to work with animals in a way that you are looking for their needs as a first step that we have to take, because if the animals have whatever they need, they can become a very good therapist themselves. And this is the first mission that we have here, to give the animals their best place to live. Some of them can go back to the wild, but most of them getting here a house, a place, a home for life. We are doing our best to help people and animals.
So that's very interesting. I never even thought about it like that. First comes the animals, because if the animals aren't able to do their job, then they can't really help the people. So you have, so many different facilities here. I'm looking out the window and I see llamas and horses outdoors and indoors, all different types of animals. And you said, as you mentioned, this was from your actual experience, something that you suffered in the Army, which inspired you to create the facility that we have here. First of all, how big is the facility, number one? And number two, how many people do you see on any given day, on any given week? How many people come to receive therapy or treatment here, and where are they from here in Israel?
Okay. First of all, the place is quite small. We are about, 3 dunam. I don't know how to say in acres. It's not even an acre. It's nothing. People come not just from Israel, also from the States. After 9/11, I used to have some people that were sent to have their therapy here. And from Israel, they come all around Israel, from the north to Eilat, and we are doing all kinds of projects. I can say that just on this last Pesach, we had also for the Seder, in a very special and unique thing that I did with 70 PTSD soldiers, that we went also diving at Eilat together, like doing Kriyat Yamsuf.
And that's the splitting of the Red Sea.
Splitting of the Red Sea.
Where it actually took place, in the Red Sea.
Exactly. And we are going, not 70 people all together, we're going groups under the water. It's diving first time for most of them, so it's only 6 meters that we go down. And just I give them some thoughts that they have to think before we go under the water. And when we are under the water, it's like being a baby before you born, that you are inside of the water in your mother stomach, and you feel like you are very secure. And in that place, we are starting to ask the questions. We go up out of the water, and then we carry on here. So just for Pesach, as I said, I have 70 soldiers, PTSD, about 60 handicapped with wheelchairs, also soldiers. All around the year, I believe that we give our service to about, there are years that we give for more than 3,000 people who come to have their treatment. Some of them, it's a long-term treatment. It can be 2-3 years. Some of them, it can be just for a very quick and short therapy for maybe 3 months or 6 months. It depends on their needs, what we have to do with them and how we do that with them.
The situation here, Israel, in general, I opened by saying, we are almost basically always in a constant state of either war or, unfortunately, terror attacks happen almost on a daily basis. How bad or how severe is the situation in Israel as a result of where we live and what we're going through, perhaps as compared to other countries in the world? These are a lot of stories that perhaps they're featured in Israeli newspapers. I know there was one over Passover featured about soldiers who were fought in Gaza in 2014, reliving their experiences. But a lot of these stories don't make it into the international press, or the English-speaking audience doesn't really see the situation. They hear about the battles, but they don't hear about the days, years, months, and after, and you know, all the time after the war ends, or an event takes place, a terror attack or what have you. How severe is the situation in Israel today when you compare it to, let's say, other countries, or just in general? How bad is it?
It's quite bad because, first of all, we as Israelis, we are very strong people, because, you know, each one of us, our children, afterwards, they are going to the army by the age of 18, and they are becoming soldiers, and they are fighting because this is the fight of our life. We have to do that. We are not fighting because we want to have war, but we have to look after ourselves. And, you know, we are celebrating 70 years for the Medinat Israel, but still we are building this state, and we have terror attacks, as you said, and wars coming and going. I can say that even in the Israeli society, all of us, we are like used to be under this stress of terror. But if we stop for a second and see what it does for us, the way that we might see children, they're having some fears. They just hear in some places an ambulance. They don't think, oh, maybe there's a pregnant lady who is going to hospital to give birth. They say, what happened now? Where are the problems? And same thing happened with soldiers. When you are a soldier, you are a very strong guy. But when you go back to your life as a regular citizen, all the memories are coming back, and then we are starting to see the problems. People that are afraid, people that cannot speak, people that cannot go to work. And one of the ways that we developed here to help people is not by attacking them and saying, you are a patient. I see all the people who come to me like clients. They come to me to work with me to save the animals, and by the way, they are saving themselves. I'm not coming and telling them, you know, you have problems, you need to do that and that, like a regular therapy that I can do in my clinic. Is giving them the place that they are good, they are strong, they are able to help the animals, and with that start, we can really help them not just to process whatever they had in the trauma, but also to find the new path, how to live their life with that trauma and having a good life, as we all want to have here in Israel.
It's so important, and I really want people to get to know this unique facility here in Elazar, Israel. Dr. Yehuda mentioned that people come to receive therapy and treatment from all over the world, which I didn't even realize. I knew people from all over the country. I didn't realize from all over the world. But not only that, that I know that Dr. Yehuda's colleagues from all over the world, groups come and learn and experience the clinic and see what Dr. Yehuda does here and take it back to wherever they're from the U.S., from Europe. I've seen groups come here from time to time, and they learn from Dr. Yehuda and his unique style and his unique approach, and bring it back to them. So he's really not only benefiting those suffering from PTSD here in Israel, children who are going through different types of disabilities or have different types of autism or different needs here in Israel. So it's really, really becoming universal thanks to this, as he said, small 4 dunam. And I also don't know how to say that. What is it, 2 acre maybe? I don't know, center. Maximum here in Israel. But I want people to know how they can reach you if they want to, number one, find out more about your approach towards healing. Number 2, you also have the place open for people who love animals and want to see animals, and people, tourists who come to Israel.
And it's very important to say that when people come, like a tour, a learning tour, or doing a birthday, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, and so on, we use the money just for the sake of clients who cannot pay for the treatment, either looking after the animals. We really, everything is a not a profit organization, because we would like just to give. Usually when families come and people come, they really like it so much because the animals here are so calm because they are living like in paradise. So they are so calm, and you know, the animal come to you when they want to be pet and so on, and it's a very, very unique thing to go through.
So it's a 2-for-1. If you're visiting Israel, you get to see the animals yourself. 1,000 different types of animals, number one. Number two, you can know you're doing a good deed because the money goes back to helping those in need. Dr. Yehuda, how can people reach you? What's the best way?
The best way is by mail. The mail is Havayot Center at Gmail, but I will spell it. Havayot, Havayot, .center, CENTER, at gmail.com.
And if anybody wants to reach me, I'm happy to put you in touch directly with Dr. Yoni Yehuda. I want to thank you so much for your time today here, joining us on Israel Uncensored, and really congratulations on all your accomplishments, and thank you for all the important work you do in helping all those in need here in Israel and all over the world.
Thank you so much for your work, and everyone is welcome to come.
Come check out the Havayot Center, Gush Etzion, Israel. And that's going to do it for today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Once again, you can get in touch with me via email, josh@thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Go back and listen to the first half of the show if you missed a minute. And don't forget to check out all the amazing programming here on the Land of Israel Network. I am signing off for April the 8th, 2018. It is Sunday, and you're probably hearing this on Monday and beyond. Most importantly, between now and when we talk again next week, please God, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom.